Welcome to the Retro Game Club Podcast, Season 4, Episode 18, which is also Episode 129. I am Rob, and joining me is someone who could finally resurrect his Ouya, Hugh.
That's right. Actually, it is unhooked right now for various reasons. That was my go-to emulation system for a long time, but then I ran out of HDMI ports and decided I would rather use an HDMI port for something else. And I know there's adapters and all that stuff, and also out of power outlets, so I don't have room for an HDMI switcher either. Yeah.
What's been going on?
Let's see. I finished Live Alive, or however you pronounce that game.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a pretty good RPG. About half the game really is the last chapter. So it's longer than it seems. It seems like a short game at first, but it's actually pretty long.
I've been hearing good things.
Yeah, I guess the sales have been pretty good too. There's not a lot of other competition right now. Like there's no other like 16-bit style RPGs coming out. I think there's there's a new Trails game coming out in America the end of September, which, it's a 12-year-old game. Finally getting US localization, but in terms of things that are sort of 16-bit or near 16-bit style, there's just not a whole lot else that I'm aware of right now. I finally got around to playing Skyward Sword HD, a game I've owned for a year.
On the Switch?
Yeah, on the Switch.
Yeah,
I played the original when it was new. Like I literally opened that the day it shipped, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like after I finished it, I did a little write-up of how I thought Skyward Sword, ranked against the rest of the Zelda series and where I thought the Zelda series was going based on Skyward Sword. And of course, if you use Skyward Sword to judge the direction of the Zelda series, you would be very, very wrong in hindsight.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of ranked it like middle of the road as Zelda games go, and in my opinion, really hasn't changed. It's still a really great soundtrack. I think it is possibly the best soundtrack in the series.
I agree. Yeah.
And maybe the best dungeon design. None of the dungeons are realistic in that you can't imagine this is a home somebody built for themselves.
Yeah.
But they're really good puzzles, and they're not too large. Like I think they're very, very good dungeons. But unlike other Zelda games, there's like zero exploration. It's just a waste of time to even try exploring in the game. And the controls, like on the Wii, were okay. I was never a huge fan of the motion controls, so I've been playing it with like the 8-bit DO controller instead. Still not much better. The controls are still pretty bad.
Oh, yeah. That game, I played it the same way, and it made me bad at other games, like right afterwards. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Well, the camera is the weird one, because there's no good way to control the camera, because the stick you would usually use to control the camera now controls the sword. So you are, I guess, so you're kind of stuck with like an Ocarina of Time style camera, which was fine in 1998, but feels a little bad now.
Yeah. I think this is a great, flawless example of a wonderful game with huge problems, but this game is still really good.
Yeah. I'm probably gonna finish it. We'll see. And I think I was gonna mention this. I think this month, maybe even our next episode, although this is not a commitment, we realized that the Magnavox Odyssey turns 50 this month, September. What is this? 2022. So it would have been September 1972, before either of us were born, when the Odyssey launched. And I thought, being that was a pretty significant milestone in gaming history, we should do an episode about it. The problem is, our combined experience with Odyssey is like 5 minutes.
Yes. At conventions, pretty much, for like a minute. Yeah.
And that is it. I do own an Odyssey. I own one of the later variants. It's still the same thing. It's the bright yellow one. I think it's the 3000 maybe. I don't have a way to hook it up, because you have to own an old school TV to connect it. And I don't believe there is a, what's the official name for that switch box thing with the two little things you have to screw to the TV?
Antenna to something.
something. Well, the part that you screw to you literally are screwing it to the TV.
Yeah.
That part. I don't believe there's an adapter from one of those to HDMI. Maybe there is. And I don't mean like some dude on Hackaday made one. I mean, like, I can go to Amazon and type in this Gizmo to HDMI adapter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So where this is all going is, if you have experience with the Odyssey and have some good stuff to say about the Odyssey, please email us. Email at retrogameclub.net. Is that right?
That's right. Yep.
That's right. Email at retrogameclub.net with your Odyssey stories.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we do an Odyssey episode, I think we will do one this month. But if we do, we are going to need a lot of help.
I do think we should include the Odyssey 2, because I don't see us ever talking about the Odyssey 2 ever in another context.
I agree. I never see myself talking about the Odyssey 2 either.
Yeah. Yeah. I have friends that go to a lot of estate sales and stuff like that, and all the time they'll send me a picture, well, pre-pandemic, of an Odyssey and be like, hey dude, it's like $5. You want it? Every time I'm like, no, I will never touch it. It'll just go in a box until I die and then end up in an estate sale again.
Yeah. So I had that epiphany this week too, like that I complain about having too much stuff, and at some point, my kids are going to move out, and I'm not going to live in a 4-bedroom house that has like a yard and stuff anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So like I was looking, I get emails of like estate sales in the area. This is not in the notes. This is an impromptu topic. And when I was looking at one, there's one not too far from my house, and it just said, lots of vintage stuff. And I looked, and vintage stuff meant like tacky beer mugs and LPs, like, think of, whatever rock bands are popular in the 70s LPs.
Yeah, yeah.
But down in the basement, there was a ColecoVision with a bunch of games. And I was like, oh, I've never owned a real ColecoVision. I owned that ColecoVision clone system.
Mm-hmm.
ColecoVision Flashback, maybe it was called. But never a real ColecoVision. And then I'm like, oh, well, this is just down the road. I'll just go there and buy that ColecoVision. And I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. Someone can buy it and try and flip it on eBay. I don't care.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have room for it. I don't have, again, it's the screwdriver hookups. I don't have any way to hook it up. I would cram it in a storage container, and then one day when I'm moving, I'd be like, why did I buy this thing?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Unless I somehow buy a house that has like when I say dedicated game room, I mean something the size of a small warehouse. I don't need all this stuff. So I hope someone bought that ColecoVision with the intent of playing it, but probably someone bought it thinking they can flip it.
Yeah, yeah. Or they own a store already, and it's already up in the store. And if that's the case, hopefully they cleaned it up first.
Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, this house looked like it smelled like cigarettes. I'll just tell you that. Like, it's got that like at-home bar, and I didn't see ashtrays or anything like that for sale, but I'm just like, I suspect, just a hunch. When you have the at-home bar probably has a smoking section.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
That was my other fear there, but I didn't go in the house, so I can't verify that for real.
Well, I mean, speaking of a bunch of stuff, when you messaged me that you were ready to record, I was in the middle of, I have 2 drawers kind of in my display your retro stuff area in my basement. Yeah. And then a few boxes around that has just filled up with the stuff I don't know what to do with. Like, so I got some organizing, like drawer organizer things, and I've been going through that, and I have so much weird stuff I have so many weird things, like little gadgets and stuff, but I also like, how many USB to USB mini or micro cables do I need? Or how many USB-C cables do I actually need? And so far, I haven't thrown any of them out, and it's taking up a significant part of the news section. So,
yeah. So, I'll show you right here. I have this drawer. I can pull this out right here. This drawer that I just pulled out is all cables like that. This entire deep drawer. I did, I mentioned my fondness for buying like organizers. So I do buy like these Nintendo pencil boxes and then organize the cables by type. So like this giant pencil box here is just the cable you described. This is nothing but USB to micro USB cables. There's 20 in here.
Yeah. Because one day you'll need to hook up 20 Raspberry Pis or charge 20 wireless PS2 controllers or some PS3 controllers or something.
Well, yeah, well, you know what it is that every device you get comes with one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if it doesn't need it. I think my toaster came with a USB cable. I don't know why. Like everything comes with it. But they're cheap. They're just cheap, junky ones. So I buy like all these good Anchor, like the Anchor brand, braided, like high quality cables because they're like 8 feet long and indestructible.
Mm-hmm.
So that I just have this thing of all the junky ones that come with every device that I should just throw out. I don't know why I don't do it.
Yeah, or at least recycle them or something. Yeah, it's crazy, but who knows? Like I haven't thrown out any. We'll see what I do with them.
Well, while doing some house cleaning, I did find this very old cell phone, so I have to go to electronics recycling anyways. So maybe I will dump off some cables while I get rid of this old flip phone that you would see on an episode of X-Files.
I was going to say you could send it to some Hollywood studio and they'll keep it in their props department.
No, the hinge is broken.
Oh.
It got dropped one too many times. This was probably my wife's phone from like 1999.
But I mean, the weird things I found in there, like I have a Raspberry Pi hat that connects to JAMA, so you could put a Raspberry Pi instead of like an arcade case, an arcade cabinet, which when I bought it at the time was like the latest greatest thing you could do with arcade cabinets. I'd never used it. Mm-hmm. And in fact, it never got out of the box other than I just plugged it into a Raspberry Pi so I'd be like, this is the Raspberry Pi I'll use for this. But now there's Misters that have that same kind of hat. So there's no reason for that anymore. Just Dreamcast mod things, 3DS streaming mod gadgets. Yeah, just like a ton of stuff that I was like, wow, I totally forgot I had this thing.
Yeah, I have some. I mean, we could do a thing of like, what's the most useless accessory or thing you own? Like, I bought a PSP component out cable in case you want to play the PSP on your TV. Mm-hmm. Seemed like a good idea at the time, but what I didn't realize is it doesn't do any scaling. So you're basically playing a very small box on your TV.
That's like the size of a PSP screen.
Yeah, it's not much bigger than a PSP screen on the TV. I'm like, well, this is really stupid. Why would anybody purchase this?
Yeah.
Well, I purchased it, so there you go.
Yeah. That is funny.
Yeah. I really thought I would use that to play RPGs more, but then I didn't.
Because it didn't scale.
Yeah, because it looked awful. Yeah.
Yeah, you would have to like plug that into like an OSSE scaler or something from like RetroTink or something like that. Yeah, it would be a crazy setup.
Yeah. Or maybe I thought I'd watch like Beavis and Butthead on it or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that's funny. Speaking of Misters and stuff like that, I was going to play one of our Game Club games, and I had a PC board for it that wasn't working. So I was like, I need to play this game, and I don't want to play it on archive.org. So I did a quick search because Mister is a bit different than MAME, where they have to build the specific core for it. So MAME, I think, is a little bit easier in that way. I was like, man, this would be a good opportunity for me to dig into that. And I started doing it all manually because you need to get the ROMs and you need to get the right core and yada, yada, yada. Well, there's this guy that wrote a script called Mr. Update All. And literally it gets the cores, it gets all the ROMs for any arcade cabinet core that works and all that stuff. So I was able to finally test that out and it worked so well. And I'll get into it later, but I played with a PS4 controller, which was not ideal for any of our games this time. And so I need to find a good stick for that. So yeah, my Mr. Love is growing every single day. But other than that, have you heard of Arcade Paradise?
I have not.
It's a I think it's on all systems, including Switch and Steam Deck, and I've been playing on Steam Deck, and this might be my game of the year. It sounds like it's a gimmick, which it is, but it's one of those games that I guess you see the preview or the pictures and you think it's shovelware, but it's not. It's getting great reviews from everywhere, really. And all it is your rich father gives you a laundromat with like an arcade or two cabinet in the back. And your goal is to keep the laundromat running and expand the arcade. And so you can like do construction to build more space and get upgrades and more cabinets. You have to keep the cabinets working, keep the place clean. There's certain rules that you kind of have to abide by. And each of these cabinets has like a full game in it with great soundtracks and stuff. Like there's a vector game that plays kind of like an old tank game, like a top-down tank game. The best one is called it's like Race Chase or something, where it's a Pac-Man type setup and you're in a Lamborghini kind of gobbling up wads of money, and cops are chasing you, and there's a mini map to help you stay away from the cops. And it just has it's so fun to play, and it has a fantastic soundtrack. When you get out of your car, you're running around with a boombox on your shoulder, and you can throw musical notes at the cops to slow them down. They start dancing. There are so many just great games in this that you need to play each game and kind of get different scores to kind of get different upgrades for your arcade. And then also the more you play a certain game, the more other people will want to play it, so you'll make more money that way. I am obsessed with this game. So please, if anyone's playing this game, I know it's not retro, but it has a retro feel. I think it's supposed to take place in 1993, but yeah, they really put their heart and soul in this, and it comes through. Just, I can't say enough good things about this. Anything else before we dive into some news?
No, nope.
All right. Well, I guess we should start an episode then.
Yeah. What we got here?
We have a Macintosh Classic 2 with an e-ink display, and this article is a lie because it's just a Raspberry Pi connected to a e-ink display. An e-ink display, if our listeners don't know, is just like the a Kindle, and
okay.
And so the first Macintoshes only had like the black and white displays, so that works perfect to kind of create something like this. It's a e-ink display, a Raspberry Pi, and a few other cables and stuff inside of a Mac Classic 2 case. And it looks cool, it runs cool, but in my notes here, I have it. I had this idea probably in 2010, 13 at the latest. And I had started buying the parts to actually just replace the screen with an e-ink display and actually have the Mac Classic 2 innards working perfectly. But I never finished it. I probably still have those parts someplace here.
Probably, yeah. One of your junk drawers, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But nevertheless, still a cool project.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of these kind of things. Like if I just gutted my NES and like just dropped a 6 terabyte hard drive in there, I don't think I would put an article called like person adds 6 terabyte hard drive to NES.
Exactly. That's how I feel about that article as well. Like yeah. I have a feeling we're going to see a follow-up where someone actually does the thing, because that would be really cool. And there's a lot of cool retro Mac games to play. So they should do that. And those screens are dying. The old ones, not the e-ink ones. This next article actually says what it does. I listened to Ravi Albert talk a lot about this. It's a mod for your GameCube where you just drop in, you take out the board that the controllers plug into, and you plug this in instead, so it looks exactly the same. But it allows you to bind a Bluetooth controller to your GameCube. And the cool thing about it is, if someone plugs in a GameCube controller to port 1, your Bluetooth controller becomes port 2, and so on all the way up through port 4. And it's pretty instant. So I know a lot of these projects, it's hard to get all this working, but this is a really cool one that seems really simple.
Okay. I feel like I could buy a GameCube Bluetooth controller on Amazon, but I definitely bought, when I first saw the headline, I guess I didn't realize it was talking about Bluetooth, because like I literally have a PS2 to GameCube controller adapter, because PS2 controllers are easier to get than GameCube controllers.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Wavebirds are very expensive now.
The Wavebird, yeah, and I have a Wavebird, and I remember, gonna part with that. Although I do see people selling imitation Wavebirds.
Huh.
And the Wavebird wasn't good because it was wireless. It was good because it was a good controller.
Yeah, I mean, the wireless was nice. Like, it was the first wireless controller that felt like it actually worked, But yeah, that was a nice controller. What else do we have? Yeah, from our intro.
This was sent from a listener. It's about someone set up a new clone of the Ouya store. So if you have an Ouya, like the idea was you would get the software through their online store, but of course that's down and has been for a while. So they have I guess, imitation version of it that they've created, which is fine, except like you don't need to ever connect to their online store. You just turn off Wi-Fi and the system runs exactly how it did before.
Okay. Yeah, I've never used one.
Yeah, that's what I don't get, because like I turned off Wi-Fi because it was just easier.
Yeah.
And everything works just fine. Of course, you can't download new stuff, but I was only using it for a few emulators. So
yeah.
And the setup for this is pretty sketchy. It's like, on your internet router, temporarily change your DNS server. Like, oh, okay, well, that's a great way to get hacked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm not sure there's many people that will want to use their Ouya that way anyway.
No, that's the reason. The other reason my Ouya, whatever it's called, Ouya, is unhooked, is I was thinking of replacing it with like one of these Android boxes off Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Like the $40 or $50 Android streaming box. That's like thousands of times more powerful.
Yeah.
But then I'm always like, I'm not going to hook that up either.
I feel like at this point, whenever you want to get a new cell phone, you could just keep your old cell phone and just put RetroArch on that, and just like do like USB-C to like HDMI or something. Do a Bluetooth controller to that. It'd still be way more powerful than an Ouya.
Well, yeah, it would be. I mean, it's 10-year-old technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's get through some of these. I don't have a lot to add. NES internal BlueRetro kit. Yep,
it's a no solder, no cut Bluetooth adapter for your NES. And that's it on retrorgb.com. I actually think that's kind of neat, yeah. And another retro RGB, TEOS, a replacement for the operating system on the Turbo Everdrive version 2. And so this is just different firmware you would boot up into. And the big thing is it allows you to use your Turbo Everdrive card as a super system card. The old one, the old OS does not. So that's the big update there.
And we got something here that is an overview of the Game Boy Advance homebrew scene. Along with a video on how you can get started doing Game Boy Advance homebrew.
Yeah, programming your own games. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I will probably never do homebrew for any Nintendo system.
How come?
Because I feel like Nintendo will find some way to take it down eventually.
And you'll just get hired from Sega if you do it. Do a Sega one.
Yeah, it just seems there's like sort of this like risk reward payoff, and I'm more concerned that Nintendo is, because you have to bypass some lockout thing Nintendo's doing. Like, they could probably find some way to. But once they run out of bigger targets, I think this will eventually be a thing they decide to shut down.
That could be, yeah. Like this next article.
Someone made a game for the Donkey Kong Bongo controller.
Yeah, and it looks cool. I mean, it looks less annoying than the old Congo Bongo controllers.
Yeah, it's like an infinite runner game, right? So one button is run, the other's jump or something.
Yeah, and there's a way you attack, and there's like some boss battles and stuff. It looks pretty good. I'm not saying it looks like it plays good. It actually looks graphically good. And then a last-minute addition here, Pokemon Mini FPGA core released for the Mister. So I really don't know anything about those Pokemon Mini devices. Have you ever?
I do not either. Matter of fact, this might be the first I heard of them.
Yeah, they look like VMUs.
Yeah, this must have been something when I wasn't, after I stopped working at the game store, because I've never seen this.
2001.
Okay, there you go. I had like a real job and stuff.
Yeah, when you weren't paying attention to little Tamagotchi-like things like this next device that you can now play.
Next device. Yeah, so for Doom running on things, there is a thing called the Flipper Zero, which is a Tamagotchi-like sort of device. I don't know what it's supposed to be used for. I guess I can go to the website and read. It's used to send and receive wireless signals for RFID, Bluetooth. So I don't know. It must be something you use if you want to go scan for Bluetooth devices. But it has a small screen, and if it has a screen, someone will get Doom working on it, and that's what they have, is a very low-res version of Doom.
Yeah, and that's about that.
Even though the level they're playing looks a lot more like the first level to Wolfenstein. Wow, that is... Yeah, they had to have written a custom WAD, because that's not a Doom level that they're playing. It looks like a one room kind of on repeat. Like
maybe they got the Doom engine working, but they didn't have enough from RAM to do anything else.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. It sure looks like a custom. Yeah, it looks like a custom WAD file that, just whatever. It still seems like a pretty cool project.
Oh yeah. And I actually think this next one looks cool. I know it's this stuff has kind of gone into our groanable category, but I put this one up nevertheless because I liked the GitHub. So this is a Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, now playable on your PC. So what this is someone went line for line and converted the assembly code to C using the SDL2 library to for the visuals, so it'll work on Windows, Mac, and Linux. And they claim it doesn't use any original code. It doesn't use any original assets. You actually need your own ROM dump, and it'll pull the assets in from the original cartridge. And then you could play a native port of Link to the Past on your PC. I think it is pretty cool. A lot of heart went into this one.
Yes, it'll get taken down. So
yeah,
I didn't really look at it.
Download the code as fast as possible.
There's no chance that will be around.
Some goofy news. Sega announces Space Channel 5 and Comix Zone movies.
Yeah, I didn't think either of those were like big enough names.
Yeah,
right? Like Sonic. Everyone's heard of Sonic the Hedgehog, right?
Yeah. I do think that they're supposed to be bringing both these games back and a few others. I think as mobile games. Maybe ongoing mobile games with microtransactions and stuff like that. So that might be the motivation, kind of cross promote these things. You know what? Like, I've seen worse synopses, however you pronounce it, of other TV shows than these. So, I'm excited to see a trailer for them. I don't know if I'll watch them. We'll see what the trailer looks like. I mean, it can't be as bad as a live action Pac-Man, right?
No.
Have you checked out the next one at all?
Did I? Probably not. Did I add it? No, I did not look at this one. Although I did see a second article about it today that I also did not read.
Well, this next article is Colossal Cave Adventure Preview. Dig into the wreck. So this is a modernization reimagining of the old text adventure, Colossal Cave, done by Roberta Williams. It looks like it's from the mid-2000s, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. It looks like it's a new game, but yes, the graphical style. Colossal Cave, yeah, I think there's some question mark. Hopefully they cleared that, because it's a game where, like, I think the license for it is probably a little bit fuzzier than you think. Like, the guy that wrote it just basically put the source code out, but didn't really release it under a public domain license, which means it's not really public domain.
Mm-hmm.
So he could, in theory, decide to probably shut the project down, but I think doesn't really, like, he has a history of not stopping anybody from doing projects based on his original code. So, and
there's a VR adventure too, so a VR component.
All right, well, hard pass.
Yeah.
And last, I don't know who added this. I was thinking of adding it, and then I unadded it because I read the article and found it to be interesting, but like not what I was expecting. And it's called, so the title's just horrible. Making CDI Games in 2022. That's the title of the article. So I thought this was going to be about how you might get started writing a CDI game.
Yeah, like the Game Boy Advance one we just had.
Yes. No, this is an interview with a developer, Jeffrey Jansen, who is a CDI enthusiast and has built several games.
That's it. So I put this on here, and the only reason I did was that we could mention that his father worked at who did CDI? Philips. And growing up, CDI was his only gaming system. That's the only reason why I put this here, to talk about how he was probably the one person that had to live that life.
Probably, the hardcore CDI lifestyle. It seems like a podcast called like CDI Lifestyle, which is dedicated to living the CDI lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And every day, every moment of your life, just focused and revolving around the CDI. Seems like you could not do more than 1.5 episodes.
That sounds about right. I mean, he goes in here to say, like, the CDI had it was pretty much just a CPU. It didn't have any hardware for sprites or anything like that, which even like the NES had. So that's why it was so laggy.
Yeah. It was designed to be just a general purpose multimedia device, right? It wasn't really designed, like, games were a thing it could do, of course, but it was not really, I don't know who it was designed for.
It was a mist machine. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all it was built for.
Like, did it even have Myst?
I have no idea. I feel like it had to, because Myst feels like it was made for the CDI.
Yeah, but that means it didn't have it.
I know.
It had Dragon's Lair, which of course you can play on your DVD player, right?
Yeah. And also, Dragon's Lair is not a game that you would want any lag.
Yeah. Okay, there is Myst for CDI, so there we go. That's fine. There's also Name That Tune. There is a pinball game. Oh, Rise of the Robots. Oh, man, there's a game that was bad even on something that was meant to be a game machine.
I feel like, did the CDI have a lot of karaoke? It seemed like it would have been good for karaoke.
It probably would have been. I haven't found that on here, but it wouldn't be on the game list.
But
I don't know, but I suppose it had to have.
I just think it's interesting that, there were CDI people out there. And if you were like me, even back in, when was this, 94, it was just like the most groanable system.
Yeah, I mean, I own one, and I own a single game for it. So
Yeah, like just for
I mean,
something.
I do literally every time I go to a thrift store, I look for one. So
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I remember. Didn't Macromedia or Director have like a CDI compiler so you could build like CDI apps for like displays at malls and stuff like that?
well, that would be interesting. That I would get into.
Maybe Authorware. Remember Authorware?
Yeah, I never used it. That's probably on archive.org, right? I can probably get that.
Yeah, it's got to be because that was all Macromedia stuff that Adobe swallowed. But yeah, quite a bit of we haven't had that much news in a while, and I guess we should get into some game club.
Yeah. Go and do yours first because I just okay, I found the window. But yes, why don't we do Alien versus Predator first?
Cool. Yes, Alien versus Predator. So it was a game that came out in '94. It is a like Final Fight like beat 'em up game. You can pick from 4 different players. There's 2 different Predator type characters, and then a Schwarzenegger type character and an Akuma type character. Their names their names are right here: Predator Warrior, Predator Hunter, Major Dutch Schaefer, and Lieutenant Lin Kurosawa. What makes this a little bit different is you have actually 3 buttons instead of the 2. You have the jump, you have a projectile like a gun, and you have your melee attack. And you could, combine the 2 every once in a while, but you do have a certain amount of ammo and stuff like that. I do think the Predator Warrior is the best balanced character to play. Obviously, you fight the xenomorphs, who are taking over, what's the name of the city? Sandrad. That must have been some kind of typo or I don't know, but apparently it was the biggest city in the West. And like those games, you even like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle games, and the Turtle games, you would pick up pizza for health. This had a lot of various things like a wedge of Swiss cheese or a hot dog to get your energy back. So it's kind of funny seeing a Predator eat that for sustenance. I think this game has fantastic sound design, graphic design. I think it plays great. I think it's maybe the greatest game of this type. Street Fighter 2, a few different versions had already come out by this point, and you can tell they put some of that love into here. And the gameplay, I think, is just flawless. It's on a CPS2 system, so it actually still feels pretty modern for today. In '94, there was supposed to be an Alien versus Predator movie, but it was scrapped way until 2004 when a whole new script was released. So what you see in here was almost a movie plot. What else do I have in my notes here? Oh, yeah. There was supposed to be a 32X port of this, but that got canceled. Not because of the game itself, but because of the 32X just not doing so well. Yeah. But I think that would have been a really interesting port because the 32X had a far superior processor, CPU and GPU than the CPS2 system. But the CPS2 system had like quadruple the RAM. So it would have been interesting to see what they got away with there. And what do you think of this one?
Yeah, so I was actually going to check out a speed run of it, but then that led me into looking at the Super Nintendo version. I forgot that it existed, even though I probably sold many copies of it. So I ended up watching the Super Nintendo speed run, just because for whatever reason I found that, even though it doesn't look as good, I just sort of found that to be a more interesting game. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how good it looks for being on Super Nintendo, like relative to the arcade version. I don't know, maybe they took some shortcuts. Like it seems like there's not a lot of animation frames like per attack.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how they got away, because the sprites seem like very large for a Super Nintendo game. So there are probably multiple sprites for each sprite. Mm-hmm. These are like TurboGrafx 16 size sprites. And like China Warrior, you know what I mean? Or Bongo Adventure style sprites. So I think it looks pretty good. I think I don't play a lot of these beat 'em up games.
Mhm.
So, but I think it looks all right. I had mentioned I was going to watch the new Predator movie. I still haven't yet. Haven't gotten around to it.
It's fun. It's a fun movie.
Yeah, but I had mentioned this to my wife, and she had not even heard of Alien versus Predator. Which was fine. I suppose it's probably, unless you're into games and other sci-fi stuff, maybe you haven't.
Yeah.
But as she noted, isn't Predator also an alien?
Yeah, like AV Alien, Alien v Alien.
Yeah, it's really Alien versus Alien. And I'm like, I now can't stop thinking of that. Unless Predator is actually some sort of ancient race that lived on Earth.
No, they lived on their own planet. I know the whole. I won't go into the whole history.
There's their own predator planet.
Yep. And they have their. Oh, I forget the name of their species. I'm sure there's people screaming at their podcasting devices now, but I think they're just going with the since the predator. That's not the name of their race, So I think it's the title is really like franchise versus franchise. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I was looking into it. What's weird is this is a very rare instance where the US version of the cartridge is way cheaper than the Super Famicom version.
Do you know why?
I don't, but it must have been underproduced.
Mm-hmm.
Must just be a number of copies. I thought, because I don't remember it very well, I guess I naively assumed it was very rare. The US version does not appear to be rare. I mean, you can pick up loose copies for like $15, which this day and age for Super Nintendo games is not bad at all.
Yeah.
Whereas like the Japanese version is 3 or 4 times that much.
Interesting. Yeah. Huh.
Yeah, I don't know why. Usually the Japanese versions are a little bit cheaper. Worst cases they're going to be like the same. But yeah, like this and like Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 is another one where it's weirdly expensive to get the Japanese version.
Yeah, that is another strange one. Yeah.
Maybe these games weren't big hits in Japan. That's all I can think of. Maybe these franchises just weren't popular there.
I did want to bring up a topic with this is that, well, 2 things. The first thing is Bill Paxton must be the only actor that was killed by a Terminator, a Predator, and a Xenomorph, which I think is pretty funny. So aliens and robots hate him. And the Predator in every just Predator movie, not Alien versus Predator, but they always lose. Like, I think those movies are about the dumbest predators, and that I want to see a movie about like a really talented predator and just have
the first Predator kill like almost everybody except for Arnold.
Yeah, but this is them like going out to, just go hunting. Like we're going deer hunting or something. And they're constantly dying, you know what I mean? Like so I want the movie where it's like the best Predator and it's just like a blooper reel of just like him slaying all the humans. Then when he's done, he just leaves. He goes back home. That's the movie I want.
But I thought they were motivated by like the target more than just killing for the sake of killing, right? I thought they had some sort of motivation around collecting particularly good trophies. So then would the Predator be only going after tough opponents?
Kinda. I mean, the human is considered like a middle ground opponent, maybe upper middle, just because of our intelligence. But it's a rite of passage, really.
They haven't been out in public very much, I see.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's the movie I want. Just one that just like rampages, just runs right over us. How about your game?
Yeah, so I went with Predator 2, which I actually owned. The thing about Predator 2 is it's actually plays. I think of it more like a sequel to Narc than a Predator game. It's like you're out gunning down drug lords, right? But you're not arresting them. You're a cop who's just full on gunning down drug lords. it kind of feels like it maybe started as something different, and then they got the Predator license because the Predator content isn't really present until the end of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It's I also called it like an easier version of Smash TV. Like
Yeah.
it's mechanically a lot like Smash TV, but there's just far fewer enemies.
Yeah.
And the look, the aesthetic, like they probably I kind of suspect maybe they were trying to make a Shadowrun game originally. Because it has a sort of a Shadowrun type of aesthetic. You know, the setting is sort of this, you know, dystopian. I realize it's supposed to be Detroit or something, but it's like this sort of dystopian.
Oh no, it's L.A.
American city.
L.A. Yeah.
It's L.A. Yeah, yeah. I guess I always assume these movies take place in Detroit. They look like that.
Yeah.
But it could just as easily have been like a Shadowrun story, I think. But anyhow, it's not bad. And then I watched a video of the 8-bit versions, and those are surprisingly good too. I didn't play like the Game Gear or Master System versions, but they look really good.
I didn't know those existed.
Yeah, they do not look much worse than the what do you call it, Genesis version.
And this is a good looking game too.
Yeah. Yeah, for like a publisher that you kind of associate maybe with let's say less than awesome games. This is pretty good. I mean, I think this is a pretty solid game. Yeah, so it also has Amiga, Atari ST, Commodore 64. So it's obviously a European developer because it's ported to a lot of things that were bigger in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if you watch, like I watched the video for the Master System version, it's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the sound in this, the music is fantastic in this game.
Yeah, I think it's
I love that intro.
One of the Fallen brothers, probably. I think probably Tim Fallen. Oh, so there's a different game called Predator 2 that I should have looked into this a little bit more. There's another game called Predator 2 that's on like C64 and a bunch of other systems, but that's a shooter. That's like a Operation Wolf style shooter.
Okay.
Oh, I was wrong. No, it's Matt Furness is the composer. Okay, and Matt Furness has done a ton of games. So there you
go. My biggest problem with this game was it was hard to aim. Like it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like guys kept running at me while I was shooting at them, and bullets were just going all around them. But that might be my fault.
Probably mentioned this on a different podcast, but like Matt Furness is like the king of like. If you ever play a game that's kind of not like a mediocre to bad game, but it has an awesome soundtrack, there's a very good chance it was Matt Furness. He's like built quite a career out of making really great soundtracks for kind of okay games.
What are some of them?
Well, I mean, like if you look at his resume, there's a lot of stuff like Bartman meets Radioactive Man, Wolfchild, right? That's on there. Zool, Hook. We just mentioned Predator 2. I think Predator 2 is actually pretty decent.
Mm-hmm.
Lot of like soccer games in Europe. Big 29 is one of his. Did one of the home versions of Pit Fighter, it looks like, but I don't know which one. But yeah, I mean, like all of his stuff is very good. Like all of his soundtracks are great. Like, oh, here's one I like a lot: Incredible Crash Test Dummies. Not an awesome game at all.
Definitely an interesting
really
game.
Yeah, really fun soundtrack.
Yeah. Well, what are you gonna play next?
I think Zach alerted us to the fact that Mario Kart turns 30 this week.
Crazy.
So yeah, so I'm gonna play the original Super Mario Kart, probably on the Super Nintendo Classic Mini, or whatever it's called.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna do Asteroids. Any version, including clones. So I want our listeners to find those old crazy like DOS clones, Amiga clones, all that stuff. I want to hear about all of them. Even the arcade had a few clones. So,
what about that like weird late 90s remake?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm all in. I'm selfishly doing this one so I could play it on the Mister because there's a few ports on there. Yeah, so if our listeners play Super Mario Kart, Asteroids, Predator 2, Alien versus Predator. If you destroy your Mac Classic 2 with an e-ink display, if you put Doom on anything, or if Nintendo takes down any ports you create, or if you have 10,000 USB cables that you have no idea to do with, please email us. Email at retrogameclub.net. That is email at retrogameclub.net. And Zach does all our social. We have our link tree in there with Facebook, Instagram, all stuff like that. And yeah, we got a few emails this week. Joe writes in, he's been catching up, and he's always been awful at Space Channel 5 since the screen doesn't have on-screen input commands. And he was at the Long Island Retro Convention, which I heard was really good. And he played a Sinistar Cab, and he thought it was pretty good and pretty memorable. And is reminded of episodes of Starcade that included it with Greg Edwards defeating Sinistar himself. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember seeing that one, but I'm sure I have it on my
archive. Yeah.
Right, they're all on archive.org, right?
Yeah. And he also played Jungle Hunt on the actual cabinet, which was near the Sinistar cab. And it was surprisingly fun, but it had the Tarzan clone of that game. And he also shared a photo of an arcade board he thinks is from Spain that's kind of like a Nintendo Play Choice, but with PC Engine games.
Nice.
From a company called Torvision. And I have never seen anything like this.
I have never seen that either.
Yeah. Thank you for sending that in. I feel like Majors might know something about this one.
Possibly, yeah. I don't know. It's on, when I just Google them, it takes me to an article on the Bootleg Games Wiki, so I suspect this is not a completely legit thing.
Nice. That's cool. And Joe, thank you for that email. And Jimmy G writes in, and he's defending Pizza Ranch.
Right.
He said the Christian rock music they pump through the restaurant is not awesome, but they do have the National Suicide Prevention line posted in there, which he thinks is good. And they're building a few more of them.
And they're building one near Joliet, Illinois. Yeah, that's the depressing thing. Like my kid just started high school, and the back of her student ID card, they now put the National Suicide Prevention Hotline on the student ID cards. I don't know if all schools do that. I mean, I guess I guess that's a reasonable place to put it. It's kind of depressing that we think we have to do that, but
yeah, better to have it than not, I guess.
Than not, yeah. But yeah, I don't know about Pizza Ranch. I don't know if I'm going to try it or not. You know, when you go to, they're in a lot of like smaller towns. So, you know, a lot of areas, like I said, where there may not be another restaurant open.
Yeah, I feel like it'd be them or like Golden Corral or something like that.
Yeah, see, I think, no, these are towns that are not big enough to get a Golden Corral.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right.
So towns that have multiple Dollar Tree and Dollar Farm and Dollar Family all in the same corner.
Where like the dollar stores have kind of intentionally or unintentionally put a lot of local businesses out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking, the one I'm thinking of, I think, is by a Dollar General. So
there you go.
That checks out. It's also, I think, near it, there's also a thing that used to be a Wendy's, but now is like, you know, some rando's family restaurant.
But
the interior is still a Wendy's.
Why not?
Yeah. All right. Majors. He mentions it with our episode 128. Perhaps a missed opportunity to do Commodore 128.
I just don't know enough about it.
I don't either. Yeah. I think that it's Commodore 64 128 referred to the RAM, not the CPU, because obviously you were not buying. They were so cheap, right? The idea was these were the home budget computers.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, you were not putting a CPU that would maybe only be available to NASA at the time.
Yeah.
Flashback minis jumping the shark. He mentions that there is a rumor at Games will release another Atari flashback this holiday season.
Jeez.
It would be number 11.
Wow.
No, I can't talk about this. I will probably look at like all the Black Friday ads and see if there's any great retro gaming deals this year. I usually enjoy that, but the past few years there just haven't been any. It's been, outside of like the Atari flashback, there just hasn't been much interesting.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In television EMU troubles, he also says that he's had difficulties getting RetroArch to play in television games, along with remapping controllers, which is a pain, yes.
Yes.
He had a specific issue with Commando way back when we talked about it on episode 96. It ran very slow on emulation. He says very, very good port of the game otherwise. On real hardware, it's actually very fast. Also recommends an intelligent emulator called JZINTV. I think I tried that before, and it doesn't work in Linux, or it didn't work well, something like that. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
There was something I've definitely tried it and found that I'm looking at it right now. This is like a Windows only. It's got a Windows Mac builds. It has some sort of Raspberry Pi version that they list as being untested, which never a good sign. So never got into it. Square Pizza. Did we talk about Square Pizza last episode?
We talked about regional pizzas. Yeah.
Regional pizza. He asks, is Square Pizza the same thing as is what you're describing? Is it the same thing as Sicilian pizza?
No. The Detroit pizza, I think, is a little thicker.
Okay. I don't know. I still never had Detroit pizza, but it's mostly from not having ever been to Detroit.
I'm Googling it right now. It does seem, it does look pretty similar. And when you Google it and type versus, then the first thing that comes up is Detroit pizza. So,
could be is that a big immigrant group to Detroit at some point?
Not so much, but, it says that Detroit pizza is usually heavier on the sauce. Or sorry. The Sicilian pizza is heavier on the sauce, and Detroit pizza is heavier on the cheese. So there you go.
All right.
Yeah, there's whole Reddit groups on it, apparently. The verses of those two. A whole rabbit hole to go down.
Yes. I'm not going to go into that one. What else? Game Club Games. Predator 2 says also reminds him of Smash TV. Very similar multi-directional mechanics. He did not enjoy the movie, so he didn't give the game the time of the day before. And he also had the same feeling I did, which he has a suspicion that this started off as a different game and was reskinned about halfway through to make it a movie tie-in. Yeah, that's really what I thought too, just again, because the Predator content is like the last stage.
Yeah.
And then Alien vs. Predator. He says he runs it quite a lot at comic or sci-fi events. He has Street Fighter type special moves and was only ever released officially on the Capcom Home Arcade. Which, I don't know if we've talked about that. It was the large 2-player stick. It was like this 4 or 5, I'm exaggerating on the price, but it was like hundreds of dollars for like a giant arcade stick that you plug and play.
It's the 2-player thing that's connected together, and it's just a big Capcom sign.
Yeah, but wasn't it like really, really expensive? Maybe it's the Alien vs. Predator license.
Yeah. I don't see any prices here.
Yeah, I just where is it here? If I go back, nope. Well, if I go back to an article from when it was announced,
I see 179 euros. So
179 euros is over $200.
yeah, that's pretty expensive.
Yeah, this other article says 229 Canadian.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it's for sale in the States anymore.
Yeah, well, let's just check out our dear friends eBay, because that's always a good gauge of what things are worth. That was a joke. eBay is kind of... people are selling it for $329 on eBay.
Crazy. That is just crazy.
New in box. So there you go.
Yeah. All right, and we got some social media stuff. What was your favorite arcade game that you can play with just one hand?
Well, I'd like to just say everybody got this one wrong. The question is not what game can you play with just one hand. You can play any arcade game with just one hand as long as you don't care how you do.
So what is the correct answer then?
Well, again, if you don't care at all about how you do, I'm trying to think, can you do any special moves in Mortal Kombat without any of the attack buttons? Raiden can. So I'm going to go original Mortal Kombat as Raiden.
I'm going Star Wars Arcade because you could definitely play that with one hand.
Do things with foot pedals count? Because otherwise, like, Outruns in there.
True. Yeah, good call.
You could play Paperboy with one hand. It would be bad at it, but you could definitely do it.
Yeah.
You don't need you don't need to hold both handlebars to play Paperboy. But
most people said Miss Pac-Man.
Yeah. I appreciate all the answers, but these are not creative enough.
We got some Ladybug, Arkanoid, Monkey Ball Arcade, which is a good answer, Qbert, and Bubbles.
Lethal Enforcers. Right? You don't need two hands to play Lethal Enforcers.
No.
Mad Dog McCree. You could probably even do Dragon Slayer because you never have to use the joystick and sword button at the same time.
A lot of the shooter games like House of the Dead, stuff like that.
Yeah, any game with a gun, of course, is going to be one hand. And again, if you just don't care how you do, right? or you want a challenge, like just playing Raiden without ever using an attack button.
Yeah.
Raiden the fighter character from Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Or Kano, I guess the original Mortal Kombat, you could do Kano without any attack buttons. Not Liu Kang, not Scorpion. Yeah, those are, I think, the only two characters you could do no attack buttons and have some chance of damaging your opponent.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good speed run. The Mortal Kombat no attack button speed run. I'm sure someone's figured that out.
I feel like someone's done that. Yeah, they must have. But yeah, that's email at retrogameclub.net, and we have Asteroids and Super Mario Kart. I think that's about it. Oh, and write us in about Odyssey, your Odyssey memories or knowledge or anything.
Yes, definitely, because we have extremely limited experience.
Yes. And does that wrap it up?
That does. So thanks for listening.